Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into a story that frankly sounds more like fiction than fact. Imagine a figure at the absolute peak of global fame, admired by millions, yet simultaneously, secretly, grappling with a staggering $53 million in personal debt. It's a paradox that's almost impossible to reconcile, isn't it?
It really is. Utterly baffling on the surface.
But then, the narrative takes an even more astonishing turn. Within just 5 short years, that same individual, emerging directly from the jaws of that immense debt, builds an empire valued at an astonishing $1.7 billion.
Yeah.
This wasn't merely a recovery, it was a meteoric, almost unbelievable ascent that completely reshaped not just the fashion and business worlds, but the very definition of celebrity branding and influence.
Absolutely redefined it.
And then, with a speed that defied logic, almost overnight, that immense fortune, that meticulously constructed empire, nearly evaporated. Everything built with such audacious vision and relentless effort, gone in a blink. This isn't just another tale of fame or fortune, or even a simple cautionary one about loss. This is about something far more primal, more profound. It's about how one man took that deep, agonizing pain of public vulnerability and financial ruin and somehow transmuted it into incredible disruptive power.
Right.
And critically, how that very same power, once unleashed without restraint, came perilously close to consuming him entirely.
What's truly fascinating here is that we're talking about Kanye West, now legally known as Ye. His journey from that self-proclaimed startling $53 million debt to achieving billionaire status with his Yeezy brand is the stuff of legend.
It really is.
But as you've highlighted, the subsequent incredibly rapid collapse is equally, if not more, compelling.
Yeah.
It forces us to ask, what exactly happened to the individual who, for a significant period, seemed to redefine not only fashion and art, but the very essence of power branding and cultural influence? His story offers a unique microcosm of ambition, relentless creativity, and the often unforeseen consequences of wielding unchecked influence.
Absolutely. And that's our mission today on The Deep Dive. Our mission is always the same. We take your sources, whether they're articles, in-depth research papers, your own personal notes, or even raw data, and we extract the most important nuggets of knowledge or insight.
We dig in.
We aim to give you that essential shortcut to being truly well-informed, providing surprising facts, and just enough humor to keep you hooked on the journey.
Today, we are dissecting the mind and the empire of Kanye West. We've meticulously pulled from a stack of powerful sources that illuminate his unique, often controversial, and always impactful approach to finance, his career trajectory, his profound creativity, and of course, his immense social and cultural influence.
Yeah.
This raises an important question for all of us, looking at a journey so extreme. What can we truly learn from a path so audacious, so dramatic, and at times so utterly bewildering? Okay, let's unpack this. Hashtag, tag, IFSC on tag to set, financial mindset, redefining the purpose of money.
So let's cast our minds back to February 2016. The internet, the entire entertainment world, pretty much everyone, collectively gasped. Kanye West, seemingly out of nowhere, tweets to his millions of followers, "I write this to you, my brothers, while I am $53 million in personal debt. Please pray we overcome."
Wild, right?
I remember seeing that, and like many, my first thought was, what in the world is he doing? Most public figures, especially celebrities, would go to extraordinary lengths to hide that kind of financial vulnerability, to bury it, to pretend it never happened.
Oh, absolutely. It's like rule number 1, don't show weakness.
It's an unspoken rule of celebrity.
What's truly counterintuitive and therefore fascinating here is that for Kanye, it wasn't a hidden shame at all. In fact, it became, in a very real sense, a badge of creative sacrifice.
Interesting way to put it.
It was a bold public declaration of his unwavering commitment to his artistic vision, no matter the financial cost. He was essentially telling the world, my art is so important, my vision is so grand that I'm willing to bankrupt myself for it. And this public vulnerability, incredibly, resonated with a segment of his audience. It speaks volumes about his deeper financial philosophy, which defied every conventional notion of how to manage money, especially as a global public figure.
I see what you mean. Because for most of us, money serves very clear purposes. It's often a symbol of success, right? Or it's a vital safety net.
Sure, the buffer.
It's something you accumulate, you preserve diligently, you invest wisely, and you use it as a buffer against risk, against the countless unknowns of life. That's the textbook definition of intelligent financial planning, the kind of advice you'd get from any financial advisor.
Standard playbook.
But Kanye, he seemed to do the complete opposite, not just occasionally, but as a core principle.
He truly did. He viewed money not as an end in itself, nor even primarily as a means to achieve personal security or luxury, but as fuel for his vision.
Just fuel.
And not just any fuel, but an unstable, volatile resource that needed to be burned to be used up in relentless pursuit of something he deemed far greater than mere profit, his artistic and cultural legacy. Think about it. He wasn't afraid to spend recklessly, to borrow heavily, not for lavish personal indulgence, but to finance projects that, on the surface, had no immediate discernible commercial return.
Right, like those elaborate tours or fashion shows.
Exactly. We're talking about things like elaborate music tours that pushed technical and creative boundaries, incredibly expensive fashion prototypes that might never see a commercial release, and immersive, multi-sensory experiences that most would dismiss as pure vanity projects.
Stuff that looked crazy expensive.
In a world utterly obsessed with immediate return on investment, ROI, how much financial gain you get back for what you put in, Kanye was gambling everything on what he called his aesthetic legacy. He was playing a long game, betting on cultural dominance over immediate cash flow.
And the sources are very clear. His debt wasn't for frivolous luxury, which is what many assumed at the time. It wasn't about status symbols or accumulating mansions just for the sake of it.
No, not really.
The research really highlights that his debt was specifically about investing in the parts of himself he felt the world didn't yet understand. He genuinely saw Yeezy not as some fleeting celebrity side hustle or just another endorsement deal, but as the ultimate extension of his identity. He treated it with the seriousness, if not more, of any tech founder building a groundbreaking disruptive startup from scratch.
Yeah, he saw himself as a founder, absolutely.
It was his core creative expression.
That's a crucial insight. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this deeply held desire for ownership, for total creative control, and for equity is precisely why he walked away from Nike.
Right, the big pivot.
Most celebrities, even at his level of influence, are content to merely endorse brands. They lend their name and image for a significant fee, perhaps a small percentage of sales.
Standard deal.
But Kanye wanted a foundational stake, a piece of the pie. He wanted to be a true partner, a co-owner, a visionary with equity, not just a billboard for someone else's product.
And that Nike decision, in retrospect, was absolutely crucial. I mean, Air Yeezy with Nike was already a colossal success. The shoes sold out instantly. They created massive cultural moments. Everyone wanted them.
Huge hype. Huge.
But Nike, from their perspective, saw him as a collaborator, a valuable marketing asset. They consistently refused to give him royalties or any form of ownership in the line.
They wouldn't give him the cut he wanted, the ownership piece.
So, despite the immense visibility and the steady cash flow that Nike offered, Kanye chose what he saw as principle over comfort. He walked away from the biggest sportswear company in the world, a seemingly impossible move because they wouldn't grant him what he felt he deserved. True equity and creative control over his own creation.
Looked like madness to most people.
It looked like career suicide at the time.
And that's where Adidas, struggling to regain relevance, particularly in the North American market, stepped in. They recognized the immense value he brought beyond just product sales. He brought a brand, a cult following, an entire narrative they could plug into.
They saw the bigger picture.
So when they partnered in 2013, Adidas gave him precisely what Nike wouldn't: full creative control, and critically, a royalty structure that mirrored that of a tech founder.
Okay, that's key. What does that mean exactly?
This meant that unlike typical endorsement deals that might be a flat fee or a small percentage of gross sales, Kanye was structured more like a co-owner, getting a significant cut of revenue from the very first dollar, aligning his incentives directly with the long-term growth and profitability of Yeezy.
Ah, okay. So he had skin in the game in a totally different way.
Exactly. The payoff was astronomical. By 2020, the Yeezy-Adidas partnership was generating an astounding $1.7 billion in annual revenue.
Wow, $1.7 billion.
Kanye himself personally earned $191 million from those royalties that year alone. It's hard to wrap your head around that kind of number, especially considering where he started, that $53 million hole.
That's right. And this truly underscores the analysis of his risk. This monumental success didn't happen because he played it safe or followed the conventional playbook.
Not at all.
It was all a direct result of his willingness to leverage debt as a tool of innovation. He literally used borrowed money, the very thing most people fear, as an accelerant.
Turned debt into fuel.
He was willing to risk financial ruin, to put everything on the line, in relentless pursuit of something intangible, something he called cultural dominance. For Kanye, money was never the end game. It was merely a flexible, often volatile resource, a means to convert his boundless imagination into tangible, cultural impact.
The emotional core of this financial mindset is truly something unique. It's both incredibly powerful and, as we've seen, incredibly dangerous.
Yeah, definitely a double-edged sword.
There's immense courage in staking your entire future, your entire reputation, on your creative vision, on what you believe the world desperately needs to see and hear. But beneath that audacious confidence, there's also a profound, deep-seated fear.
Fear of what?
The fear of being ordinary, the fear of being ignored, the fear of not being recognized for what he perceives as his genius. His financial decisions in this light weren't merely strategic, they were existential, a constant high-stakes gamble for validation. Money, in Kanye's world, was a battleground for his own artistic and personal legitimacy.
So let's distill this. What's the big takeaway for listeners here?
So, what can we take away from this unique perspective on money? If you approach money solely as a means to protect yourself, to build a safe, impenetrable fortress against risk, you might never venture out and create anything truly disruptive, anything that breaks new ground and genuinely challenges the status quo. You stay safe, but maybe small.
Right. But if you begin to see money as a catalyst, as the fuel for your grandest, most audacious visions, you must also be willing to accept the very real possibility of losing it all.
High risk, high reward, potentially.
It forces you to ask yourself a fundamental question. Are you building wealth primarily to feel safe? Or are you building it to manifest something the world has truly never seen before? Something that leaves a lasting aesthetic or cultural legacy? It's a profound distinction, and one that sets the stage for how he approached his entire career. #2, career strategy and wealth building.
You know, it's almost ironic to look back at it now, but when Kanye West initially left Nike in 2013, the general perception, honestly, was that it was nothing short of career suicide.
Oh yeah, people were baffled. I remember people scratching their heads. Nike had turned Michael Jordan into a multi-billion-dollar brand, a household name synonymous with athletic excellence. Why would anyone, especially a celebrated artist, walk away from that kind of leverage, that kind of established platform?
Seemed crazy.
Here's where it gets really interesting, and where his long-term strategy truly begins to reveal itself.
The why for Kanye, at its absolute core, boils down to one word: ownership.
Ownership always comes back to that.
Nike, from their corporate perspective, saw Kanye as a valuable collaborator. They viewed him as someone who could inject cultural relevance into their Air Yeezy line, make it desirable to a new generation. But they consistently refused to give him royalties or any form of equity in the line.
They wanted the cool factor, not a partner.
To Nike, he was a face, a powerful marketing asset, temporary news. But to Kanye, that distinction between being a collaborator and being a creator with a foundational stake with equity was everything. He wasn't content to be just another celebrity endorser. He wanted to be a founder. He envisioned himself as a visionary with true equity, someone who wasn't just designing a product, but building a lasting legacy, a true brand empire.
And that decision, that seemingly reckless choice to walk away from Nike and their multi-million-dollar deals, actually became the absolute cornerstone of his entire wealth strategy.
Totally pivotal moment.
It's absolutely fascinating how something perceived at the time as a monumental mistake turned out to be, arguably, the smartest long-term move he could have possibly made. It completely altered his trajectory.
Indeed. Adidas, on the other hand, saw precisely what Nike was missing. They recognized a tremendous, almost unparalleled opportunity. They were actually struggling significantly to find relevance, particularly in the North American market, at that specific time.
Adidas needed a boost.
And Kanye offered them something far more profound than just another sneaker design. He offered an entire brand with an almost cult-like following, a full-blown lifestyle, an entire disruptive narrative that Adidas could strategically plug into.
He brought the whole package.
So when they partnered in 2013, Adidas gave him precisely what Nike wouldn't. Royalties, crucial, full creative control over the Yeezy line, and a genuinely long-term vision for the partnership that included equity participation. They understood that he wasn't just an artist, he was a brand in himself.
They bet on him, not just the shoes.
Exactly.
And the payoff, as we mentioned, was just phenomenal. By 2020, that Yeezy-Adidas partnership was generating an estimated $1.7 billion in annual revenue.
Staggering.
Kanye was personally raking in an incredible $191 million in royalties that year, according to Forbes. And by 2021, his stake in Yeezy alone was valued at over $1.5 billion, which pushed his total net worth to an astounding $1.8 billion.
Billionaire status.
achieve.
He didn't just become one of the richest musicians on the planet. He became, for a time, one of the most successful and influential Black entrepreneurs in history, not just in entertainment, but across industries.
His unique wealth strategy was truly unlike any other conventional approach. It wasn't about diversification, that common wisdom of spreading risk across multiple ventures or playing it safe with traditional investments like real estate or diverse stock portfolios.
No index funds for you.
No. Kanye bet everything on a single, high-risk, high-reward brand Yeezy. It was, in essence, a startup cleverly disguised as a fashion line, and he poured all his intensity and singular focus into it, treating it with the single-minded devotion and entrepreneurial fervor of a true founder, not just a celebrity figurehead.
Laser focus.
He knew the difference between a paycheck and a stake.
He had this incredible, almost prophetic understanding that real wealth doesn't come from fame. It comes from equity, ownership, leverage.
That's the key insight.
He understood that the real game wasn't just about how much you earned in a single paycheck or a single album cycle, but what you owned, what intellectual property you controlled, and what you could build from that ownership over the long term. This was a sophisticated understanding of value creation.
And the genius of his approach was in leveraging his immense celebrity and cultural influence in a way few others have managed to do. He transformed his cultural impact directly into business power, almost seamlessly.
How did he do that specifically?
Think about it. Every single Instagram post by Kim Kardashian wearing unreleased Yeezy samples, every candid paparazzi shot of him or his family out and about that inadvertently became a global marketing campaign, even his most public controversies, no matter how messy or bewildering they seemed at the time, all of it fed into the mythos of the Yeezy brand, keeping it at the absolute forefront of the public consciousness.
Any publicity is good publicity, almost.
In his world, yeah.
Sure.
He understood that in the modern age, attention is currency.
It's like he turned his entire career into an intricate, self-sustaining ecosystem. His music initially brought the attention, drawing in millions of eyes and ears and generating a massive fan base.
Build the audience.
Then his fashion line skillfully converted that raw attention and cultural capital into tangible revenue, literally selling out products in minutes.
Monetize the attention.
And then surprisingly, his controversies, rather than sinking him as they might others, actually kept the narrative alive, keeping everyone talking, keeping the brand undeniably relevant and in the news cycle.
Keep the conversation going no matter what.
And beneath all of this, driving every single decision, was a man who was absolutely obsessed with control. Control of his public image, control of his creative output, control of his products, and ultimately, absolute control of his own future.
Control was paramount. So the core lesson here is critical for anyone pursuing success, whether you're a startup founder or a creative. Wealth isn't just about the sheer volume of what you earn. It's fundamentally about what you own.
Own your stuff.
It's about building assets that appreciate and generate value independently. But there's an even more important and perhaps more difficult question that Kanye's journey forces us to confront. What are you truly willing to walk away from to protect that ownership, that core creative control?
That's the tough one.
Would you genuinely leave a billion-dollar opportunity on the table, as Kanye did with Nike, if it meant losing your unique voice, your creative integrity, your fundamental autonomy? Kanye West did precisely that, and for a significant period, it propelled him to levels of wealth and influence that he, and perhaps no one else, could have ever imagined possible.
It worked for a while.
It's a powerful, albeit often chaotic, illustration of the price and reward of radical self-belief and an unwavering commitment to ownership. #Tech3, success habits and unique behaviors.
What I love about truly diving into Kanye's story is how consistently he proves that he never followed rules. He invented his own playbook.
Absolutely. He didn't just bend them, he ignored them entirely.
It wasn't just breaking existing norms. He was meticulously designing entirely new ones that defied all conventional wisdom.
That's absolutely right. While other artists and designers meticulously followed traditional album rollouts or fashion marketing calendars, months of planning, controlled releases, polished campaigns, Kanye instinctively blurred the lines between performance, his often tumultuous personal lifestyle, and direct commerce.
Life became the marketing.
Pretty much. His massive success wasn't just a product of raw talent. It was meticulously forged through a series of behaviors that, to most conventional thinkers, would appear irrational, eccentric, even self-destructive.
Yeah.
Yet, Remarkably, they consistently yielded extraordinary results, proving his intuition was often ahead of the curve.
Let's talk about Yeezy Season 6 in 2018. It's such a perfect, almost legendary example of his utterly unorthodox approach to marketing.
Oh yeah, that was brilliant. Insane, but brilliant.
Instead of booking a traditional runway show in New York or Paris or an elaborate studio photo shoot with high-fashion models, he did something completely unexpected. He sent his then-wife, Kim Kardashian, out into the streets of Los Angeles.
So out and about.
She was dressed head to toe in unreleased Yeezy pieces, doing the most mundane tasks, grabbing McDonald's, pumping gas, walking through parking lots, running errands.
Like the opposite of high fashion glamour.
Exactly. And here's the stroke of genius. She was photographed by paparazzi during these ordinary, unscripted moments.
Using the machine against itself, kinda.
Then, those candid, often grainy paparazzi images were reposted by Kanye and Kim as the official Yeezy campaign images across their social media.
The actual pap shots became the ads.
Think about that for a moment. No stage shots, no polished press releases, no traditional runway show, no airbrushing, just raw, viral, undeniably real life captured through the lens of a relentless paparazzi.
He was genius guerrilla marketing. This move absolutely broke every single fashion marketing rule in the book, defying decades of industry standards. But it didn't just work, it exploded.
Totally blew up.
The internet completely lit up. Fans started mimicking the looks in their own daily lives. Those paparazzi shots, the very ones he couldn't control in the traditional sense, became the brand itself, organically spreading the aesthetic. He turned unsolicited attention into curated content.
It felt like pure magic in a way. This wasn't just about standing out. It was about strategic control and understanding the new landscape of attention.
You got the attention economy.
Kanye deeply understood that in the digital age, especially with social media as an accelerant, attention is the single most valuable resource, far more potent than traditional ad buys. And he had truly mastered the art of converting that raw attention, no matter its source, even negative attention, into genuine conversion and brand loyalty.
Yeah, the sources revealed that his personal life, his very public feuds, his often controversial rants, they weren't always accidental.
You think they were planned? Some of them.
Well, maybe not fully scripted, but certainly part of a much broader, calculated strategy to ensure he remained utterly impossible to ignore, keeping him and his brand in the global conversation. He played the long game of cultural relevance. Beyond the strategic controversies, he possessed an almost uncanny, intuitive ability for trend seeding. He fundamentally didn't follow trends, he seeded them. He saw around corners.
What are some examples?
Consider this. He released minimalist, monochrome clothing, often in muted, earthy tones, at a time when the fashion world was still obsessed with flashy logos, overt extravagance, and brightly colored streetwear.
Right, the whole beige era.
He championed chunky sneakers, the dad shoe aesthetic, long before they became mainstream, cool, and ubiquitous.
He definitely started that wave.
He redefined what luxury meant, not as excess or opulence, but as scarcity, exclusivity, and a unique, often stark aesthetic. With each of these moves, he wasn't reacting to market demand or consumer surveys. He was actively teaching the market what to want, dictating taste rather than merely reflecting it.
He shaped the demand.
He was always several steps ahead.
And his success habits were also deeply rooted in what the source describes as obsessive iteration. This wasn't a casual creative process that he'd dabble in.
No, it was intense.
Kanye would spend endless hours, sometimes in complete silence, locked away with his design team, meticulously perfecting the subtle curve of a shoe sole, the exact drop of a shoulder seam on a hoodie, or the precise hue of a fabric.
Just grinding on detail.
They approached fabric like a musical composition, designed like lyrics, with every detail contributing to the overall harmony. There was a near religious intensity to his work process, a relentless, almost spiritual pursuit of perfection that few others could match or even comprehend.
Yeah, the work ethic was reportedly insane.
This wasn't just work, it was a calling.
Of course, this kind of all-consuming obsession came at a significant, often public cost. The sources point to burnt relationships with longtime friends and collaborators, impossible deadlines that stretched everyone involved to their absolute limits, and sadly, his well-documented mental health struggles and public breakdowns.
Yeah, the human cost was high.
The pressure was immense. But for Kanye, as the sources articulate, the price of conformity was far worse than chaos.
Yeah.
He was willing to risk being profoundly misunderstood, to push boundaries to the point of breaking, to exist in a constant state of creative friction, if it meant staying absolutely true to his unique vision and achieving genuine, unfiltered originality. He believed authenticity was worth any price.
Okay, so what's the lesson for us mere mortals here?
So, what's the deeper takeaway here for you, our listener? Most people, in their pursuits, whether in business, art, or even personal development, tend to seek external validation before they act.
Right, you want someone to say it's okay first.
They want reassurance, a nod of approval, a market test before they truly put themselves out there. Kanye, by stark contrast, acted first, loudly, unapologetically, often provocatively, and then compelled the world to catch up to his vision.
Act first, ask questions later, maybe.
In doing so, he powerfully demonstrated that your behavior itself is your brand. Your habits, no matter how unconventional or even unsettling they might seem to others, can ultimately become your unique signature, your competitive advantage. But only if you're bold enough to follow through on them with unwavering conviction, even in the face of widespread criticism. The question then becomes, are your daily behaviors truly reinforcing the person you are, the vision you embody, or are they inadvertently diluting who you genuinely want to become and what you stand for? It's a challenge to true self-expression. #Tag4Life, philosophy and decision-making.
When we observe Kanye's decisions from the outside, they often seem to us completely irrational, even baffling in their impulsiveness.
Total. Head scratchers, a lot of them.
But what's truly fascinating is that within his own deeply personal worldview, which he often refers to as his spirit or his God-given vision, they are, in fact, incredibly consistent. So when we try to understand his logic, what does this all mean about the principles guiding his choices?
His philosophy is singularly rooted in one overriding obsession, one core principle that governs every significant choice: total creative freedom.
Freedom, again.
This isn't just a preference for Kanye. It's the bedrock of his entire existence, the lens through which he makes every significant decision, and the ultimate measure of his success. Anything that compromises this freedom is viewed as an existential threat.
And he has consistently, almost unbelievably to conventional thinkers, walked away from immense comfort and undeniable security, literally millions of dollars, just to protect that autonomy.
He really has put his money where his mouth is on that one.
Think about the clear examples we've already touched upon, and others. Leaving Nike over royalties and control, publicly challenging powerful streaming platforms and record labels in the music industry, even running for president of the United States.
Yeah, the presidential run, that was something else.
He wasn't truly chasing political power in a traditional sense. He was making a profound, very public statement about his independence, his refusal to be silenced or controlled by any system or institution.
A statement piece, basically.
Each of these decisions, the sources highlight costing credibility, valuable alliances, and literally millions, sometimes billions of dollars. But in his mind, they preserved something far more valuable: the absolute, uncompromised integrity of his voice, his vision, his art.
There's a confirmed story, backed by multiple reputable sources, about him turning down a staggering $1 billion offer from a major fashion conglomerate for his Yeezy brand.
$1 billion. Turned it down.
Turned it down. Why? Because it came with creative restrictions, limitations on his final say, or conditions on his public behavior.
They wanted control with their cash.
For Kanye, as the sources reveal, no amount of money was worth surrendering the final say over his art. In a world where so many are bag-chasing, focused solely on accumulating wealth, on the next big payout, Kanye was clearly chasing sovereignty.
Sovereignty, that's a powerful word for it.
He wanted complete, unadulterated control over his creative output, over his brand, over his narrative. And that was fundamentally non-negotiable. He prioritized artistic control over unprecedented financial gain.
This is where his life philosophy really reveals itself in its purest, most uncompromising form. Kanye doesn't just want to succeed. He wants to succeed entirely on his own terms, by his own rules, or not at all.
My way or the highway, basically.
This deeply ingrained principle has been the guiding force behind his most monumental wins, the audacious successes that shook industries, and, tragically, his most painful public losses. It's a double-edged sword.
Definitely. And the consequences of embracing such radical, uncompromising freedom are profound and often isolating. When you are solely guided by your personal truth, by an internal compass rather than external rewards, societal approval, or market trends, you often find yourself profoundly alone.
Yeah, it can be a lonely path.
Kanye has notoriously burned bridges with longtime friends, with collaborators who were once fiercely loyal, and with powerful corporations that held the keys to his distribution and reach.
Left a trail of broken relationships.
His unfiltered decisions and statements have left fans utterly confused, panicked investors, and the public deeply divided, polarizing opinion. Yet through it all, he never flinched. He rarely, if ever, backed down. To him, the greatest betrayal is not public backlash, it's self-censorship.
Wow. So being true to himself, even if offensive, was more important than anything else.
That seems to be the core principle, yeah. It's betraying your own authentic voice that's the ultimate sin in his book. What makes Kanye's approach both admirable in its audacity and incredibly dangerous is that it requires an unshakable, almost messianic belief in your own perspective, even when absolutely no one else shares it.
It's a fine line between visionary and something else.
It's the path of a true revolutionary, yes, the kind of person who disrupts entire industries, but it's also undeniably the path of profound isolation and self-destruction if unchecked.
And we saw that happen, didn't we?
We did. Many people talk about authenticity as a virtue, a goal to strive for, a personal brand value. Kanye, in his purest form, lives it, often at a tremendous cost, no matter how much it alienates him. That doesn't mean, however, that his choices or his unfiltered expressions are always right or justified.
Absolutely not.
In fact, his dramatic downfall in late 2022, when major partners like Adidas, Gap, and Balenciaga almost immediately severed ties after a series of deeply inflammatory and widely condemned statements, shows precisely what happens when that freedom becomes completely untethered from accountability, from empathy, from a shared reality.
The consequences finally caught up.
His words, which he perhaps intended as provocative insights, instead sparked widespread boycotts and outrage. His empire crumbled, not because his products suddenly lost their appeal or value, but because trust did. It evaporated almost instantly.
Trust is everything in business, isn't it?
It really is. So what's the crucial lesson here for you, our listener? Your deepest philosophy of life, the core beliefs you hold about who you are and what truly matters, will ultimately define your reality and shape your destiny.
Your philosophy becomes your reality.
If your life is primarily lived to please others, to seek their approval, then your success, no matter how grand, will always be borrowed. It will be contingent on external validation, subject to changing tides of public opinion.
Living for the likes.
But if you choose to live by your own fiercely independent code, by your own truth, you must be prepared to accept every single consequence that flows from those choices, good or bad, popular or unpopular.
Own the outcome.
The question isn't whether Kanye made the right choices in his most controversial moments. The real uncomfortable question for you is, what would you genuinely be willing to lose? What comfort, what alliances, what financial security, what reputation, in order to protect who you truly are, your absolute core integrity and autonomy? #TagV, power thinking and social influence.
At his absolute peak, Kanye wasn't just shaping music or dictating global fashion trends. He was, quite literally, bending the internet itself.
He really was. It was incredible power.
It was incredible to witness this unfold in real time. His tweets had the power to move markets. His limited edition shoes caused literal stampedes and overnight campouts.
Sneaker culture owes him a lot, for better or worse.
His interviews went viral before the microphones were even turned off, often generating millions of views within hours. He didn't just have followers on social media, he had believers, a devoted, almost fervent fan base.
Yeah, believers is a good word for it.
That kind of belief, that dedicated following, gave him an enormous, almost unprecedented kind of power, a level of social and cultural influence that few artists, entrepreneurs, or even politicians ever get to experience. He was a force.
What's truly fascinating and ultimately tragic about this kind of enormous power is how it acts as a magnifier for character. It doesn't just elevate a person to a higher platform, it intensely magnifies who they already are, amplifying both their brilliance and their flaws to an unimaginable degree.
Like putting them under a giant microscope.
Exactly. And in Kanye's case, as we've seen, that amplified, unchecked power eventually, tragically, overwhelmed him. It became a feedback loop that grew out of control.
He genuinely believed deep down in his core that his voice possessed the unique ability to change culture, to provoke essential thought and conversation, to reveal uncomfortable truths.
He saw himself as a disruptor, a truth teller.
That's why he spoke with such unwavering intensity, with such conviction, even when, as the source notes, he might have been uninformed or misinformed on certain topics. He saw himself as a provocateur, a truth teller.
Which led to some memorable moments.
The most infamous example of this, and perhaps the turning point for many, is probably his statement in 2018 when he declared that slavery was a choice.
Yeah, that one landed badly. Very badly.
This was a profoundly careless, historically inaccurate, and deeply offensive statement, perhaps intended to spark a discussion about mental enslavement or breaking free from systemic oppression, but it failed catastrophically in its delivery.
The intention, whatever it was, got completely lost.
The backlash was swift, intense, and global. Loyal fans turned away in disgust. Media outlets universally pounced. Historians condemned him outright.
And yet, in the face of all that, Kanye, instead of showing contrition or seeking to clarify, didn't back down. In fact, he doubled down, often escalating his rhetoric.
Why? Why double down on something so damaging?
Because in his mind, the actual point wasn't necessarily being factually right. The point was being heard, provoking a reaction, igniting a conversation, no matter how negative or controversial.
Controversy equals relevance, in his view.
It seemed that way. This, as the source identifies, is the beginning of a dangerous mental loop. The more the world resisted his ideas, the more outrage he generated, the more he seemed to believe that he was saying something fundamentally important, something so profound that others just weren't ready to hear or understand.
He saw the backlash as proof he was right.
It seems he began to interpret widespread condemnation as a sign of his prophetic genius. This is the perilous trap of unchecked influence. When every reaction, even universal outrage, begins to be interpreted as a form of validation or a sign that you're waking people up, then boundaries inevitably begin to dissolve, and the line between provocation and outright offense disappears.
And then, in 2022, his anti-Semitic remarks crossed a line, a critical, undeniable boundary that even his most loyal and devoted supporters couldn't possibly defend.
Yeah, that was the point of no return for many, including his business partners.
This wasn't just another controversy or a passing Twitter storm. This was fundamentally different.
The fallout was immediate and devastating. In the span of mere days, he lost monumental brand deals, the very pillars of his billion-dollar empire. Adidas, Gap, Balenciaga, and his powerful talent agency, Creative Artists Agency, CAA, all publicly and unequivocally severed ties.
Just dominoes falling one after another.
Just like that, his estimated $1.5 billion Yeezy valuation, the very core of his wealth and influence, essentially disappeared overnight. It wasn't about fashion anymore or music or cultural commentary. It was profoundly about trust.
The trust was broken. Irreparably, it seems.
Kanye had wielded his immense influence recklessly, mistaking provocation for enlightenment. He believed his aggressive provocations were shedding light or revealing hidden truths, but they were instead rapidly eroding the very foundation of his public standing and his commercial viability.
He miscalculated the impact.
He discovered the hard way that power without discipline, without a moral compass, is not a form of freedom. It is quite literally a ticking time bomb, ready to explode and destroy everything in its path.
So what's the takeaway on influence from all this?
Here's the thing that stands out from this dramatic chapter. Kanye wasn't entirely wrong to believe that a single powerful voice can genuinely change the world. History is replete with individuals who, through their words and actions, did precisely that, shifting paradigms and sparking revolutions.
True.
But those figures also understood when to pause, when to listen deeply, when to critically recalibrate their message, and when to acknowledge the impact of their words. Influence, unlike fixed assets or bank accounts, must be earned again and again, every single day. It cannot simply be assumed as a permanent, inalienable right.
It's not guaranteed.
And yet, even in the wreckage of his empire, Kanye's story teaches us something profound about the nature of influence. It is inherently fragile. It's not something you possess in a tangible sense. It's what others believe you represent, what values they associate with your name and your brand.
It's perception.
Lose that crucial belief, that public trust in everything else. Your money, your prestige, your valuable partnerships, your platform, all of it goes with it, often with astonishing speed. So if your words held the power to change the world, would you choose to speak more carefully, with greater responsibility, or more courageously, knowing the full, unpredictable weight of the consequences? It's a question worth pondering for anyone with a platform. #6 Crisis strategy and long-term game.
October 2022. That was the precise moment everything changed. It felt, for many observers, like watching a slow-motion car crash, except instead of a single vehicle, it was a multi-billion-dollar empire, built with such audacious vision, crumbling in real time.
It was stunning how fast it happened, just days.
Indeed. In just a matter of days, Kanye West transitioned from being one of the most influential billionaires on the planet to a figure whose meticulously built empire was visibly unraveling.
Adidas, which had been the absolute cornerstone of his immense wealth and global reach, made the unprecedented decision to terminate their partnership.
The big one.
This came after a series of deeply troubling anti-Semitic remarks he made in various interviews and across his online platforms. That single, monumental move instantly wiped out over $1.5 billion from his estimated net worth.
Billionaire to multimillionaire, just like that.
Forbes, acting swiftly and definitively, removed him from their billionaire list. Other major partners, like Gap, Balenciaga, and his talent agency CAA, quickly followed suit, severing their lucrative ties.
Everyone ran for the exits.
In less than a week, Kanye West didn't just lose a fortune. He lost the entire infrastructure, the vast network of corporate support, manufacturing, and global distribution that had once enabled his boldest, most audacious visions to become reality. It was a complete dismantling.
So what did he do? What was his immediate, visceral response to this unprecedented, catastrophic collapse?
Well, not what you'd expect from a typical CEO or celebrity in crisis mode.
He didn't issue a traditional, carefully worded apology. He didn't launch some carefully curated public redemption campaign that we often see from celebrities in crisis trying to win back public favor.
No PR blitz.
He didn't retreat quietly from the public eye to strategize. Instead, he leaned into a completely different, almost defiant kind of strategy. One built on radical creative independence, aggressive cost-cutting measures, and direct-to-consumer experiments, cutting out the very middlemen who had just cut him off.
Going rogue, basically.
The sources mention an early 2025 relaunch where he used self-funded pop-ups, often in unexpected locations, and campaigns that were designed for shock value, even releasing apparel at just $20 a piece.
$20 for Yeezy.
That's a universe away from the $300 Yeezy sneakers that once symbolized status, luxury, and exclusivity. He was clearly no longer playing the high-margin luxury game. He was playing what you might call the volume game, the guerrilla game, the survival game, betting on accessibility and sheer will.
And this wasn't just a business pivot or a tactical shift. It forced Kanye, the individual, into a much deeper, more profound reckoning.
Had to look in the mirror, maybe.
He was no longer shielded or protected by layers of corporate advisors, publicists, or massive marketing budgets. Every single word he uttered, every product he released, every move he made now came directly from him, and therefore reflected directly and solely on him.
Nowhere to hide.
For someone who had built his entire empire on absolute control and external validation, this intense, unfiltered scrutiny was both a profound punishment and arguably a kind of radical purification. It stripped away all the layers and left only the core.
And what emerged from that crucible, from that fire, wasn't the billionaire brand builder we once knew, but rather, as the source describes it, a creator in exile.
Creator in exile. Interesting phrase.
He was brutally stripped of his powerful alliances, the corporate backing that had amplified his reach. But in a strange paradox, he was also liberated from them, from their expectations and their constraints.
Freedom, again, but a different kind.
There's a bizarre, almost primal power that only seems to emerge after a truly public, devastating fall. It forces the hardest, most fundamental questions that few of us ever truly confront. Who am I without the money? Who am I without the crowd cheering me on, without the adulation? Who am I without the applause of millions validating my every move?
Rock bottom can be clarifying.
It's a painful but often clarifying process.
And this leads us to what his long-term game truly is. It's not just about meticulously rebuilding Yeezy from the ground up in its previous Adidas-backed form.
It can't be, right? That model is gone.
It's fundamentally about proving that genuine value, core influence, and unique artistry don't simply disappear when the corporate backing is lost. The true essence of his brand was never merely the shoes, the fashion lines, or even the music itself, important as they were.
So what was it then?
It was at its core defiance, reinvention, the belief that art, no matter how flawed, how controversial, how uncomfortable it makes people, still has the inherent, undeniable right to exist and to be heard. He's betting on the enduring power of his creative will.
Some might look at his current situation and declare him finished, a relic of a past era, a cautionary tale. But if history, especially his own personal history, tells us anything, it's that Kanye West is never truly finished.
He always seems to find a way back into the conversation.
He is, to borrow a phrase, chaos and reinvention wrapped in flesh, a living embodiment of constant, often disruptive transformation. His crisis wasn't a period, a definitive end to a chapter. It was rather a comma, a pause, a moment of intense transition before the next, perhaps even wilder sentence is written.
So the real long-term game isn't about clinging desperately to the top of the mountain. It's about staying alive in the game, staying relevant, staying in the conversation long enough to fundamentally rewrite the rules, to redefine what success even means, and to innovate beyond traditional structures.
Playing by his own rules still.
Kanye fell, yes, spectacularly, but he didn't fall into silence. He's still actively playing the game, still making moves. The board simply looks profoundly different now, and the rules are his own. And the crucial question for all of us looking at his journey is this. When your personal or professional platform collapses around you, when the infrastructure is stripped away, do you simply disappear into the shadows, defeated and silenced? Or do you possess the courage, the conviction, and the audacity to build something entirely new, something resilient from the rubble? Hashtag final reflection and overarching lessons.
You know, when we talk about Kanye West, it's incredibly tempting, almost too easy, to reduce his sprawling, complex story to just a few catchy headlines. Billionaire genius, canceled icon, rapper turned mogul.
Yeah, the sound bites don't really cut it.
Well, as we've seen today, throughout this deep dive, none of those singular labels, no matter how catchy, truly capture the full, raw, contradictory truth of his unique journey.
Because at its heart, this isn't just a story about money, or the fleeting world of fashion, or even the intoxicating allure of fame. This is a profound narrative about what it truly means to create unapologetically, obsessively, and, as his journey tragically illustrates, sometimes destructively, pushing the boundaries of what's acceptable.
The creative drive above all else.
Seems like it.
His meteoric rise was undeniably fueled by an almost singular, unyielding vision, a breathtaking audacity, and a willingness to completely burn bridges that most people would spend their entire lives painstakingly trying to build or preserve.
He wasn't afraid to make enemies.
And his fall was equally spectacular. A stark, undeniably cautionary tale of what happens when immense brilliance loses its crucial balance and plunges into imbalance, when influence becomes untethered from responsibility.
A true Icarus story in some ways.
But what makes his journey so enduring, so persistently relevant, isn't simply the staggering numbers or the dramatic headlines. It's the uncomfortable yet essential questions he forces each and every one of us to ask ourselves.
He definitely makes you think.
In a world that often seems addicted to conformity, desperate to fit in, to follow the path of least resistance, Kanye West resolutely chose chaos.
Embraced it even.
In a system meticulously built on politeness, on agreeable consensus, he chose relentless provocation.
Yeah.
He dared to believe with every fiber of his being that ownership of his creations, of his ideas, was infinitely more important than external validation.
Ownership over approval.
He believed that failure wasn't a final destination, but merely a temporary phase, a necessary part of the iterative process. And perhaps most controversially, he dared to assert that genuine genius has an inherent right to be profoundly uncomfortable, to challenge, to disrupt, to speak its truth, no matter how polarizing.
That's the uncomfortable part, right? Does genius excuse everything?
Exactly. And truly, that's what makes his story timeless. Long after Yeezy's market value fluctuates, long after Forbes updates its lists of the world's wealthiest individuals, Kanye's legacy will remain a mirror, a challenging, reflective surface forcing each of us to ask, what would you truly risk for your most deeply held ideas?
What's your price?
What would you be willing to sacrifice, to walk away from, in order to stay absolutely true to yourself, to your inner voice and your vision, even if it means profound loneliness or public scorn? And in the grand tapestry of your own life, are you painstakingly building a life that the world merely approves of, or are you courageously constructing one that your very soul demands, regardless of external opinion?
That's not just a story about Kanye West.
Yeah.
That's a story about us. Hashtag tag outro.
You might never build a billion-dollar brand from scratch. You might never stand on a global stage with the entire world watching your every move, analyzing your every word.
Probably for the best, maybe.
But have you ever made a decision, a really tough one, perhaps even unpopular, that cost you something significant, perhaps a friendship, a valuable opportunity, or even some financial comfort, just because you knew deep in your gut it was the only way to stay absolutely true to who you are?
Perhaps you've consciously lost opportunities because you chose to speak your truth, even when it was unpopular or inconvenient. Maybe you've been profoundly misunderstood or underestimated or even outright shut out of certain circles because you refuse to compromise your core beliefs, your values, your artistic vision.
Maybe you just took the harder road.
If any of that resonates with you, then you already know something that Kanye West learned the hard way through immense public victories and equally immense public failures. True freedom isn't free, and absolute authenticity, without fail, always comes with a price.
So here's our question for you, our dedicated listener, as you go about your day. What's the single boldest decision you've ever made that absolutely no one else understood at the time, but you, in your heart, knew was undeniably, unequivocally right for you?
Drop it in the comments wherever you're listening or watching. Your story, your personal experience might just be the quiet inspiration someone else desperately needs to hear today.
And if this deep dive gave you a new, perhaps unsettling, but ultimately valuable perspective on risk, on resilience, or on the profound, often chaotic journey of reinvention, please hit that like button and share this with someone you know who's out there chasing their own seemingly impossible dream.
Because behind every incredible fortune, behind every monumental rise and fall, there's always a unique, often defiant mindset that the world tries desperately to silence until it simply can't anymore.